Received a letter or even had a visit from Andrew James Enforcement Ltd? Receiving a letter from a bailiff can be very worrying, especially the thought of them coming to your home. To help tackle this, we'll take a look at some of the most important things you need to know when you're dealing with Andrew James Enforcement Ltd. Just to be clear, I don't give financial or legal advice, I'm just making sure that you have access to the information that you need to make informed decisions. When dealing with any individual or company chasing you for debt, the first thing you should do is determine if you're dealing with a debt collector or a bailiff. Debt collectors and bailiffs are very different. Whilst they both want to collect your debt, they have very different legal rights. Look closely at the individual or company name on any letters and perhaps do some digging online to be sure. How do you find out if Andrew James Enforcement Ltd is legitimate? If you don't recognise the bailiff's name, then you need to check its legitimacy. Firstly, the letter should have your correct name, address and information about the debt that you owe. It also needs to notify you at least 7 days in advance of the bailiff's visiting you. Next, it has to be sent to you by a registered bailiff. You can check if a bailiff is registered by visiting the bailiff register. Once you've determined that Andrew James Enforcement Ltd is legit, you can move on to confirming that the debt is valid. If you know that you've already paid the debt, then contact Andrew James Enforcement Ltd immediately and let them know that the debt is already paid. Be sure to have some evidence with you on hand when you contact them. This process could take a little time, so remember to also ask them to freeze your account. You don't want them to show up at your door in the meantime. A really worrying question for many people is, can Andrew James Enforcement Ltd force entry into your house? There's so much confusion about this, due in part to how it gets dramatised in films and TV shows. The truth is that even if bailiffs show up at your door, you only have to let them in if they are allowed to force entry, which actually depends on the type of debt that you owe. Normally, that is magistrates' court fines, tax debt, and defaulting on a controlled goods agreement. So when they show up, be sure to ask if they are allowed to force entry. They should be able to show you a warrant or a writ alongside court information with the details of your debt. Andrew James Enforcement Ltd can use reasonable force to enter, which means if they can't get in, they'll call a locksmith to get through the door. Somewhat less dramatic than kicking down doors or smashing windows like in a movie. Just to be clear, for many debts, Andrew James Enforcement Ltd can't actually force their way into your home. It all depends on the type of debt. Credit card debt, catalogues, unpaid parking fine debt, none of them allow bailiffs to enter your home, so make sure that you're aware of what kind of debt you owe. So can Andrew James Enforcement Ltd take things from your home? While bailiffs can seize possessions from your home in order to secure the debt, they can't just take anything. They can't take anything belonging to your children, your partner, or anyone who doesn't actually owe the debt. Additionally, they can't take pets and they can't take anything that you need to fulfill your basic domestic needs, like washing machines, mobile phones, or your cooker. They also can't take things you need to work or study, providing that the value of the item isn't more than £1,350. Whilst they can take your car, if you depend on it to get to work, then they should leave you it. If your car is a motability vehicle or you have a blue badge, then again, it should be left for you. Probably more important than anything else is to understand what will happen if Andrew James Enforcement Ltd comes to your house. On their first visit, they won't take anything straight away. Instead, they'll make an inventory. They'll be working out what they can take, what they can't take, and the rough values. It's called taking control of your goods. If you are unable to make payments towards your debt, they will come back after 7 days and seize the items on the list to sell towards paying off your debt. You are allowed, and in fact, I'd urge you to review the list. Be sure to ask that they remove any items from the list that you believe they aren't allowed to take. Review the list before the bailiff leaves your home to make sure it's correct. Also, during this first visit, they'll need you to agree to a monthly repayment plan for your debt. You should not sacrifice basic living costs and essential expenditures in order to pay off your debt. If you feel that Andrew James Enforcement Ltd is asking you to pay more than you can afford, then talk to them and offer to provide proof of your income and expenditures. Whilst it may feel like a lot of pressure on you, the bailiff will be hoping to leave your house with the agreement signed and in place, so take the opportunity to talk it through with them and come to an arrangement that you feel you can manage. If you're struggling with debt, then there are options available here in the UK. Some are free to use and some will include fees, and each will have their own pros and cons. If you want to find out more about the debt solutions I mentioned, or find out about other debt solutions available here in the UK, then we've created a really great form that you might be interested in checking out. Click the link in the description to get started and answer a few simple multiple choice questions like the total amount of your debt, how many people you owe, your living situation, and we'll connect you with one of our trusted partners so that you can find out more and start taking steps towards improving your financial situation.